One small bit of information that we forgot to mention in the last video is the use of tabs. So we'll explain this when we get to a laser cutter, but the laser cutter works in cutting and scoring. Basically, the laser is going to go all the way through the material or go partially away through the material. So if this is your piece of board or piece of paper, cardboard, the yellow line represents a score, which means that it's not going to cut all the way through, which will make a score line for you being able to crease from that end. The red line represents the cut, which means that it will just cut right through the material. So what that means for us is that if you send the information, and it all depends on how complex your project is, but you can send all this information at once, which means that at one time just say yellow is score, red is cut, send it to the machine, and it'll just start doing it. A lot of times it will cut with the yellow, will cut the score lines first, but not necessarily always. It might cut this cut line first. So if your object is so complex, if this cuts first, it might be a loose object on the cutting table, and then it'll try to cut the score line. Sometimes your object is so light that as the laser is passing through, it does have a little jet stream of air to blow the material away. And when that happens, it might get misaligned if it cut and then maybe blows the object out of the original location, and then your score lines will be in the wrong place. To prevent that, sometimes we just send the file, we'll just say cut the score lines first. So turning off the cut line and then just sending the score information, and that's it. And so it'll do that, and then what we can do is later on the second pass, turn on the cut line, turn off the score line, and all it's doing is cutting along here. Again, that could be a little bit dangerous too, depending on how complex your shape is, and if it's too small that it could get blown away. To prevent that, what we usually do is to add a little bit of manual intervention with it. So what we can do is to use a circle, and somewhere along the object here, if we go ahead and make a circle that's probably about 1/16 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch circle, and that would be diameter. So if I say 1/32, that would give me a space between here that is 1/16 of an inch. Okay, once I have that, I could say copy that object from the center and maybe move it, maybe have it in maybe 2 or 3 spots from here. Maybe that would be a good place. And with that, I could go ahead and trim from the circle, trim that off. Get rid of that circle right there. And what that does is it separates this cut line. So I'll do the same with these guys. Trim. And the last point, I could say trim. Okay, so what happens now is that we split these lines into 3 pieces. But that kind of means that as the laser comes across, starts cutting through this one right here, it stops, skips, and starts cutting again there, which means that this surface right here and this surface right here is still connected, which means that it will not move the design piece that you're intending to cut. So if you keep about 2 or 3 spots, maybe more depending on the size of the object that you're trying to cut, it's going to keep this portion of the paper together with that portion. After it's all done, we could pull the whole sheet out together and then manually with a X-Acto blade just slice right through these points, and that's all you really need to separate the your object piece from the cardboard. Okay, if you do that, I believe this will be the easiest way. And if you are going to get this cut through like Carpe Diem or any other shop, they appreciate that and they'll charge you less because of the labor and material time. Okay, because sometimes if you do cut all the way through, they would put another board underneath this one as a sacrificial board, which won't cut all the way through, and basically then you could lift the whole thing out of the laser cutter table itself. But when you do that, you are wasting another sheet of board, which they will charge you for. And two, some shops would try to tape all these stuff together for you, and then when you try to peel the tape off, it might start ripping the paper and such. So another places might glue the board onto the sacrificial board, and you'll have to try to scrape everything out of it. If you put this tab on there, you don't have to worry about having a sacrificial board under here, and all you really have to do is just take a little X-Acto blade and snip, and you should be done with your bit. Okay, so that's a little bit of a different way of prepping your file for the laser cutter, but I think it should work its way best for the process that you're trying to use. Okay.